Okay, so what I wanted to talk about is like after hearing about all these amazing people who are presenting and I'm sure people look online and find amazing things and they wonder, how do I fit into this? What can I do? And it's important to recognize that everyone has some way of helping, and even if you can't help a lot, it's important to help a little bit in the way that you feel you are best utilized. So I know, for instance, I'll never be as good of an organizer as Casey is, and I don't think she'll never be as understanding of the financial system as I am, but we can all kind of hold our own line, so to speak. This is what Aaron Hilton and I once talked about on a podcast where he worked for a solar panel company, and he's trying to make that a stronger part of the economy and get more solar panels on more roofs and so on. And everyone has their own thing that we can help with, and it's important, even if you don't feel like you can help at all, just by being an audience member and listening to these people, you are helping.
Yeah, what you're doing, you're empowering those people there that have had the courage to take initiative and do something. And I know that when I first started with the Zeitgeist movement, I was just a member. I was just a person who showed up to a meeting, and I sat at the back. And I did that about 5 times before I actually even spoke up. I was very much just sitting back, checking it out, getting the idea of it. And I honestly didn't have the confidence to do, I never thought that I would do what I'm doing now. So yeah, just by being an audience member, you're learning, and eventually you'll find where your energy, your skills, and your knowledge can be best utilized.
Yeah, like for every presentation, there needs to be an audience. For every book that you write, there needs to be readers. For every movie or documentary you create, there needs to be viewers. So you are also part of the solution just by consuming the content, rather than just feeling that the only thing you can do is produce the content.
That's it. Don't be afraid to step up. When I started the South Australian chapter, I started it because there weren't any other people organising anything. So I went, okay, there's nothing on the first Z-Day. I'm just going to say, let's all meet here. And basically no one did for the first couple of times, but it went well.
And that's a really good thing to bring up too, Michael, because I think a lot of people who are passionate about the movement, who do take initiative, they do things like that. They'll be like, okay, we're going to have meetings, and you start a meeting and no one comes, or maybe one person comes, you already know them, and it's just you and some mate just sitting there talking, and you're like, what the heck are we doing? I understand that, and there's been several events of mine in the past that have been like that, and it is disheartening. Absolutely, because you think, why am I doing this? Is this actually effective? And I would just say persistence is key. And also
reasonable expectations of what you think success is. Like, you can't expect to change the world overnight, and I don't expect to see a resource-based economy in my lifetime. I just hope to be part of a general shift in consciousness towards a more environmental and socially conscious, sustainable mindset.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the thing. This isn't a movement where we're looking for small band-aid changes, and sometimes because of that, we don't see immediate results. So it feels like we're not doing anything sometimes, but really it's such a huge shift that it takes time to see the results from it. And, this has been 8 years for us in the movement to see what we're seeing now. It takes a long time. And in the whole scheme of things, really, 8 years isn't that long. So if you've been running an event for like 6 months and you don't feel like it's getting anywhere, then, I would say just hold in there. Persistence is key. You do have global support, honestly. There are people around the world who support you for what you're doing if you're a chapter coordinator who's struggling.
And don't be hard on yourself. I think activism has to be fun to be sustainable. It has to be a part of your life that you enjoy, not a part of your life that you resent. So for all the activism work that I do, I really enjoy all of it, all the people I've met, all the work I get to do. There's no hardship in it, and that's why I feel like I could do it for the rest of my life, because it's not a difficult thing. And so one thing for potential coordinators and people who are interested in these topics of trying to change the world for the better, don't race to the finish line, and just put in a small amount of effort over a long period of time rather than a high amount of effort for a very short time, and just try and make a small positive change in the world.
There's a good little saying that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Oh, I haven't heard that. That's lovely. I was thinking of the quote that I have on my Facebook page, actually, which is, a society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they shall never sit. It's an old proverb. And I think that's to do with what you're talking about in terms of not expecting to see an RBE in your life, but just helping being part of that shift. And who knows? Maybe we will.
Things are getting exponentially faster. We're going to hit singularity probably within our lifetime. So, yeah, there's a potential that we can transition to an RBE within our lifetime.
We have very exciting times ahead in this life. I'm actually really excited to be alive at this time in history.
Yeah, it's not the technological progress that we need to worry about, it's the social progress. And the social progress lagging behind the technological progress.
Cultural lag.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, let's go on.
Yep.
So just when we're finishing the day on Saturday, so Z-Day, which is...
actually 2 days.
Actually a 2-day event. And you're probably wondering, we haven't talked about Peter Joseph yet, but Peter will be coming to the event. He's going to be attending on Saturday and Sunday, but he'll be doing a Q&A on the Sunday. Now, before that, we will have a panel at 4:30 in the afternoon on the Saturday, and that will be with the presenters from that day. I'm not sure if Peter will join us for that one. I really think we'll leave it up to the presenters whether they feel comfortable to do that or not. So we'll just have kind of an open panel for presenters that can make it at that time. Okay, so now we'll get into this evening's proceedings. And our first performer, who will start at 7 p.m, is Eleanor Goldfield, and she's coming out of Washington, D.C., and we've flown her over here because the work she does is incredible. Now, she has created the organization called Art Killing Apathy, and I have to apologize to you, Eleanor, that I didn't get a chance to change that in the schedule, but I have down in the schedule that she runs a program also called Act Out, which you can find online on YouTube. And that's really cool. She's got, I think they're about 30-minute long episodes, and she talks about a particular political situation that's happening generally in the United States and across the world. And she has a very entertaining, important spin on it. And she's such a badass. I just find everything that I see from Eleanor is just so, like, awesome and in your face and artistic and just like really emotive, and I'm just, I'm really engaged in her content. So yeah, she's going to be doing a spoken word to start off the performances in the evening. She'll also be a presenter on the Sunday, but yeah, we'll just get to see a bit of her art on the Saturday. After her spoken word, we'll have Roger Smith, who's a local, and he's written a few Zeitgeist songs, and he does like some funk music, so he'll be on the piano, and that'll be a bit of fun. Also after that, we will have The Beautiful Noise, which are also some awesome local people, Anita and Barry, and they will also play some zeitgeisty kind of music for us. And then we'll be lucky enough to have one of our more acclaimed local bands, The Duke, playing here at 8:30. And then in the evening, we'll have an international DJ named DJ Samari, and he's got doing like a Zeitgeist remix. So he'll be doing that and then maybe playing music until a bit later in the evening. So that should be a lot of fun. And that's at the same venue. It'll be in the workshop space. So feel free to hang out, and this will be a chance to socialise, to get to know one another.
There's drinks available at the venue. It's
drinks available at the bar, but don't drink too much because PJ's Q&A is in the morning. So if you want to be present for that, then you might not want to drink too much.
It's such a crammed weekend.
Man.
I don't think anyone will be able to see everything.
Yeah. So I guess you just pick and choose what's important to you. Also on the Saturday, before we get into the Sunday, because what Peter Joseph has offered to do is do a Q&A. And rather than doing his usual presentation, the audience will have the opportunity to ask him questions. And I think this will be a really great opportunity for us because he's recently brought out a trailer for his really long-awaited film, Interreflections. And I must say I'm really impressed with the trailer. How about you guys?
I liked it.
Yeah, definitely.
It was
And
really-
he's also released his new book, The New Human Rights Movement.
Yeah, and, Peter's reluctant to talk about this, and I'm going to bring this up because, this is something that that is done through a publisher. So he will be receiving funds for those that are purchased. And this is something that is a bit awkward because it is, once again, the problem that we were talking about before, which is, that we live in this money market system and we want to maintain integrity within the movement. So we don't want to be at the event promoting paid resources and so forth. And
Yeah.
Peter's extremely mindful of this and has been very apprehensive about discussing his book for this reason.
That's what I was about to say, that Peter is very aware of the ethos of the Zeitgeist movement and doesn't want to pollute the message and give mixed signals. But because we've been reading the New Human Rights Movement, it is clearly 100% in accord with the Zeitgeist movement's ethos. And it just doesn't make any sense to me why he would not want to put out that content that he has created to very low-hanging fruit people who are at Z-Day.
Yeah, and that's how we personally feel about it. So we really feel that in this particular circumstance that I think this can be overlooked, and obviously we wouldn't want all the presenters coming along to be promoting their personal agendas and things like that, but I think that this is clearly an exceptional circumstance. And I think that this book is an extremely valuable read and deserves to be noticed, and Peter has put in a significant amount of energy, time, resources into helping the Zeitgeist movement over the years, and we are so fortunate to have him here in Brisbane supporting us.
Absolutely, yeah.
That said, I like the fact that he's not giving a presentation like he's done before, doing Q&A, and almost in a way not trying to put himself as a cult leader or anything else like that. He's producing new content. He doesn't, he's trying not to actually promote that too much. We're the ones wanting to promote it because we're going, hey, look, this is really good. We think, should at least have a shout out, that sort of thing. We can't even get physical copies of the book to be selling there. It's keep emailing saying, hey, send us some over. But yeah,
I can understand the feeling of not wanting to promote your own personal work there, even though we personally think that it's valuable. But I guess I can see his point of view, and I definitely think that it's important for the audience and other Zeitgeist movement members around the world to recognize that Peter doesn't want to be promoting his personal work for personal gain through the Zeitgeist movement. That's not his intention at all, and really it's only ours because we think it's a really valuable resource.
Well, speaking of resources, we've actually ordered 88 gig USB drives, which have a little Zeitgeist movement logo on them, which will be
thanks to Jason Lord from LA, the
yes,
LA
thank you,
coordinator.
Jason. Which will be loading up with a whole bunch of Zeitgeist content and Zeitgeist-related content, documentaries, movies, books, podcasts, audio, and so on.
We thought the CD thing had got a little bit dated, so now you'll be able to take a USB home with chockers full of Zeitgeist movement content, and you can just pay for that by donation.
And then you can share it because information should ultimately be free. So you can put it onto your computer, copy everything over, and then give it to a friend, and they can give it to a friend and give it to another friend, and you're just sharing all this amazing content for free.
And it's really great for family members and so forth who are, a little bit apprehensive to use the internet and things like that. So it really gives, parents and so forth the opportunity to really understand why you're so into the Zeitgeist movement, which is, I'm sure, something a lot of us...
And for people who do have the internet, it's kind of like a good starting point. So, for instance, we don't think we can put on the entire Robert Sapolsky lecture series about human behavioral biology, but we may be able to put on one of his lectures, and then once you see that and you go, wow, that was really informative, you can go online and find the rest.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we've got USBs, we've got T-shirts as well, which you can buy at the venue. And unfortunately, we'd love to make those free, but we couldn't because they cost us money.
But we did use ethical cotton, free trade, all that things to make sure that we weren't supporting a economic system that we don't want to support.
Yeah, and if you go to the zeitgeistaustralia.org website and you just go down to activism and T-shirts, you can have a look at what those T-shirts look like there. And I think what we're going to try and do is if we don't sell all the T-shirts at Z-Day, we'll make some available for people afterwards, and we might be able to send them to you if you're happy to do that. Also, okay, so basically the way it works with PJ's Q&A is we're going to open our suggestions for questions up to the audience that are there on Saturday. So we'll have a booth where you can put your question in, and then we'll go through them in the evening and choose the most appropriate questions. And maybe if there's any double ups, we'll remove those and so forth, because we do really want this Q&A to be really valuable. And I think if we just do it with open floor, generally you end up with only more extroverted people speaking and so forth.
And a lot of people just give anecdotes and don't actually ask questions.
Yeah, so we encourage people to ask actual questions, to give Peter the floor.
It also lets us go through and see there might be, say, 10 questions that are roughly about the same topic and collate them all into one really good question.
Yeah, so that's all it's really about, just making it a really valuable Q&A for everybody so that when it goes online as content for people in the future, it's going to be able to be used and be, you know, another valuable resource. Before we have Peter, though, I can't forget Jason. So Jason will actually be opening up on Sunday. So Jason Lord is the Californian Zeitgeist Movement Coordinator. He works closely with Peter. He starred in Zeitgeist Moving Forward at the end.
And also the Inter-Reflections trailer. He was the guy who was cramming seafood down his face.
I'm not sure if he wants everyone to know that. But yeah, and Jason's been working really closely with me as well. He's been extremely helpful from afar and in helping me run Z-Day. He's run Z-Day events before in LA. And
it's great to have his support.
Yeah, it's been absolutely essential to have his support, I would say. And thanks, Jace, for all your help. It really means a lot. He's going to be doing a presentation called Defining Root Causes. And I'm really excited to hear that as well. So he'll do that at 10:30 in the morning, so don't be too hungover. And then and then he'll introduce Peter for 11 o'clock for the Q&A. So that Q&A will run through, and then we'll have lunch straight afterwards. And then we'll come back with Richard Osmussen at 1:30. And Richard's going to be is coming in from New Zealand. This guy's pretty cool. He's part of the Money Free Party in New Zealand, and his presentation is called Transitions. So this guy I would describe as quite an RBE optimist. And what he's done is traveled all around the world speaking to other RBE advocates. He's gone and visited Jacques Fresco, Venus in Florida for the Venus Project. He has gone around Europe talking to RBE supporters. I can't remember the name, the Free World Charter guys as well. So he brings in kind of like the perspective of people that have really similar movements to the Zeitgeist movement, and has his own perspective there and what he's trying to do in New Zealand, because New Zealand is a small country and you can gain a bit more leverage there because of that. So, and
I just wanted to say, like, even though the Zeitgeist movement doesn't think that politics is an avenue to create change, this is what I was trying to allude to earlier, with everyone kind of fighting on their own front. And there does need to be some resistance against the terrible political policies that are coming out to try and, at least, if we can't stop them, slow them down. Like, if you guys remember SOPA of a few years ago, you know,
SOPA and Pippa.
Yes, internet censorship. They would have been terrible, and they were able to be stopped through the political system. And of course, we don't support the political system for creating long-term meaningful change, but for short-term policies that would be terrible. If we could stop another, Patriot Act 2.0, something like that, I think that is definitely a good thing. And some people do find that they put their energy into the political system and that's where they're best utilized, and I think that's fine. I think that's totally okay. We have friends who are political activists, and they, have petitions and support certain politicians, don't support other politicians, and I understand that. I mean, that's not where I personally find I'm most utilized, because I am, again, more concerned with addressing the root problems and looking at the broader kind of implications.
As are most Zeitgeist movement supporters, I would say.
Yes, but you can't say that all of them are, and some people, even our friend Simon, for instance, he wanted to, get involved with a political party. We have Richard Osmussen, who's associated with a political party, and as much as I don't think that is a real solution, it can be one thing to maybe slow down bad policies coming down the line.
I wonder if there's kind of like a tipping point, that one particular policy that gets introduced that just kind of throws us over the edge to extinction. You know what I mean? Like, kind of like the straw that breaks
Trump?
The camel's back. Well, I mean, Trump's not a political policy, but I mean...
But he has the power to enact war.
Yeah. So there might be a particular thing that just throws us over the edge and goes, no, we're screwed.
The thing is, at what point do you lose faith in the political system as having influence over the real world? And I never had faith in the political system, and I think a lot of young people never did, and so that was never really lost. But a lot of the older people, baby boomers and so on, who are involved in the Zeitgeist movement,
they've seen political change actually do something.
So they have seen it work, and so they may believe it could still work, and maybe they're right, but for me, I don't think that true change will come from the political system.
I think there's a structural issue with the current way of politics works, especially within our economic system. So we're voting for people to represent us. I mean, it's a representative democracy, that those representatives live within an economic system saying you must work in your own self-interest. And in fact, if you read The Dictator's Handbook, or at least look up the CPG Grey video, The 3 Rules for Rulers, I love this movie, the YouTube video. It explains, if you're in a key, so if you're a leader and you're on the throne of power, you have a number of key supporters, people you need to run the military, to run the treasury, all of those different things, and you need to ensure that they are loyal to you. And in doing so, it's where basically the term absolute power corrupts absolutely. So you're influenced by being on the throne in order to keep on the throne. So we don't have a properly working system. We don't have a representative democracy that can work as it should, because we have our economic system.
I don't think it's possible to have a functioning democracy if you have also a money market system, because if money can influence political change, then it's not a democracy anymore. It's a system ruled by the rich. Because if $1 equals one vote and you have more money than someone else, then you can buy more political influence.
So I guess what we really want to work towards is technical solutions. And I'm really interested to hear more about the Money-Free Party. And, by the name of that, the party, obviously they don't want money. but I mean, they want to implement something like a resource-based economy. So I guess their idea is to at least get people to recognize that our problems are technical, and that we need technical solutions, and they're using that particular field in order to share that message. And I'm very interested in talking to Richard about that, and I think that this is something that needs to be discussed as well.
Yeah, and even if we do disagree, we can have a nice discourse exploring that issue. That's what this Zeitgeist movement is all about, is about opening up communication and doing it in a non-violent way and using science to determine what evidence is relevant and what evidence can be dismissed.
And I would say that you do have power in your vote, even though it's a small amount, especially in the fact that we want political parties that are less authoritarian and dictatorial. Because I think there is, you're right, a tipping point, at which point it's too hard to transition to an RBE, at least in a nice way, because there is simply so much almost Orwellian style government control that you won't be allowed to transition.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I agree that our vote has much power at all, but I do think that that actually getting involved in politics could allow you to have the stage a little bit more to share the ideas that you believe in.
I'd say that if you're good at it and you enjoy it and that's something you're passionate about, then go for it. But you'd probably be more effective in many other areas. So.
And don't have a false expectation that you'll actually create change through the political system, and recognize that if you do achieve anything, it will be very short-lived.
Oh, no. Well, what you achieve is maybe planting seeds in people's minds that can lead to something better in the future.
For instance, I would have preferred to see Bernie Sanders beat Hillary, and then Bernie Sanders beat Trump, and Bernie Sanders be the US president now, because I think he was a more reasonable human being and recognized the dangers of banking and Wall Street and so on. So I would have preferred that, but as you know, what the events that transpired showed is that the political system is so blatantly corrupt that there was no chance for someone who actually intended to do good things to win. I mean, it was rigged against him. And this is what you need to recognize, that if there truly is a politician that has good intentions, which is rare, then they probably won't win, because the established political system will churn out what the established political system wants, and they don't want something to change things. They want people to keep things the way they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And in saying that, we don't want to discourage people like Richard Osmussen, who is,
of course not,
someone who is working through the political system. And I'm actually really excited to talk to him. I think a lot of people are, to see the work that he's doing and how effective it's been.
Yeah.
So let's go on from there and talk about our next presenter, who will be at ZDAY, Michael Kubler, who's here with us today.
Yes.
So, Michael, what are you going to be talking about?
I'll be talking about the price of zero transition.
What's that mean?
Well, if you're trying to transition away from the current monetary system, most people think of what I consider the Phoenix model. And that's something that I came across when I first joined the movement. So if we continue business as usual, then you've got just economic, environmental, and other catastrophes that are likely to just cause things to be so expensive that you won't be able to afford pretty much anything. The price is effectively infinity. So what you want is... and so that leads to the Phoenix model thing of, it's not until everything collapses that somehow in the ashes of the current monetary system collapse, you transition to an RBE.
Magically.
Magically. You've somehow saved some resources that haven't been acquired already. Even though there's no internet, there's barely enough electricity, food, anything else, you somehow transition. That, I feel, is a really bad idea.
Yeah, I agree.
So the price of zero transition says, look, let's start a whole bunch of RBE-like sustainable communities. They're using abundance mentality, systems design thinking. They're using automation at the core. And by creating an abundance of especially these necessities of life, food, water, electricity, transport, education, entertainment, all that, we can then be selling that off to the local community at cheaper and cheaper prices, whilst also converting. So internally, these RBE-like cities would be living without the need for money. And you get to the point where you can actually provide all those necessities of life for free to everyone on the planet, and transition to an RBE. So, yeah.
It sounds really exciting, Michael. And I know that there might be a little bit of resistance there, right? Because a lot of people are skeptical about that, and that they might say, but, an RBE isn't an RBE by definition unless it's global. So I guess it would be RBE-like, right?
Yeah. So you want... you don't get the chance to do a global survey in the same detail if you don't have a full. But it's the way we transition. There's a bootstrapping process that needs to be done, and when you're thinking about redesigning, governance structures, cities, the way that we think, all our habits, just that collaborative consumption model. You need to be doing things in such a different way. It's going to take a while for us to develop these new designs, new ways of thinking, everything else like that. So we need 10 years, 15 years of trying to live in small bits. And you start off with maybe under 150 people. And then when you go above Dunbar's number, 150, you find that there's a whole bunch of different issues. And then you hit 10,000 people, and then you probably find another scaling issue. But you get to the point that,
it's a safer way than waiting for the whole system to collapse and then trying to dig our way out of the ashes.
Yeah.
And this also brings me on to our next presenter, who you've been collaborating with, who's doing the groundwork essentially, right?
Yeah, so Ziggy is obviously speaking after me. And
he's the Sydney coordinator as well.
So a few years ago, I went and explained the Price of Zero to Sydney and Brisbane and stuff, and Ziggy was just like, cool, love it. Let's go actually start one of these sustainable communities. And his first idea was the RBE 10K project. Let's get 10,000 people living within a little city like that. But that's a really big ask.
I thought that seemed like very bold, a big idea.
Yes. So he's realised, actually, we want something a lot smaller. Got to start within under 150 people, and I believe it's Pretoria. I can't pronounce the exact name of the project that he's working on, but
we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, he'll obviously tell you more about that. Yeah,
at the event as well. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that, Michael. Yeah, and thank you, Ziggy, as well, and we're looking forward to your presentation too. What's going to be going on in the workshop room at the same time is our friend Dr. Richard Moschel, and he's been an ethics and system designer for, I don't know how many years,
40
years or something like that. And it's so interesting because the concepts that he talks about have kind of been going on in parallel with us that are very similar ideas. Now, he calls his idea priocracy. And it's basically what I would call another model of an RBE, or at least something else that needs to be considered in an RBE. And we talked about this briefly in the podcast today about that scarcity would still exist in an RBE.
I really enjoy his work. I remember you and I, Casey, went to one of his lectures, which was about an hour and a half, and he just blew me away with things that I'd never considered about problems that you may have in the future of an RBE. So he talked about listing out everything you would like to do and then basically having to prioritize them in terms of importance, and then you kind of work on the most highest priority task first and then work your way down the list. And I think that's a really interesting way of looking at it, because that is something that will need to be applied for scarcity that still exists in a resource-based economy. And so what we need to be very specific with what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and he spoke a lot about architecture as well. He's very interested in the architecture of the place. So obviously priorities are priority. And then also architecture, he'd like it to be very free-flowing in that people should have the ability to create the kind of space they want to live in, as opposed to kind of the more Venus project, which is a little more, I guess, rigid and designed by Jacques Fresco specifically. And I mean, obviously, that's the Venus project model of an RBE. Obviously, not the
And
natural
one of the
law.
misconceptions about free market capitalism is that it provides so-called freedom, but this type of society would allow you far more freedom, because you would have the capacity to not worry about cost and design your environment in the way that you like it. So if you like a certain type of architecture, if you want to design a certain type of house and so on, you would have the facilities to do that, rather than the current society where you basically have to buy a prefabricated apartment or house that someone else has designed, and they've usually designed it with the profit motive in mind. If you think about apartments and so on in Australia, it's like how many bedrooms it is and how many bathrooms, but it's not how livable it is, and it's not your preferences, it's what kind of attributes you can market and sell for the highest price.
Yeah.
And
sorry, go on, Michael.
And I think that something that hasn't been mentioned much is I don't expect us to have Jacques Fresco style Venus cities just stamped around the world. You actually want different cities according to the resources that are available. So if you're out in the desert, you actually want a really long city built into the sand dunes, and there's already technology that exists to do that. If you're in Bali or around the equator, you probably have access to a whole lot of bamboo. Build the cities out of bamboo.
So it's not no cookie cutter city.
No.
I guess it all has to be based around natural law, about what the natural environment
Science
imposes on us.
whatever works best.
Nature is the one dictatorship.
Yes.
And we do need to respect that. Okay, so Richard will be talking about how to get land freely, and he's talking about the concept that, we live in an economic system now where a lot of the baby boomers do actually own their land. And I guess the common practice is that baby boomers often sell their land to move to smaller land after their children move out or so forth, and or unfortunately they die, and then their properties are gifted over to their children, and the children often don't want to live there, and they sell them back to the banks. So starts the perpetual cycle of what the banks like to do. So this is something Richard would like to discuss and overcome. He has a concept of creating a trust, in that a lot of this land that baby boomers don't really know what to do with. They're not really interested in having that house anymore because it's fulfilled its need when they had young families, and now they don't really need it anymore. And a lot of them have several properties, and they do want to do other things. Richard is one of these baby boomers. And so he's talking to this audience basically about the possibility of gifting this land to people who want to support these concepts. So that's really exciting.
And there's another version of that happening in South Australia at the start called Unity Property Power. Then I'm friends with Craig Cowling, who's running that. So
it's very cool. I love that this this parallel evolution is happening, Yeah, people who don't even know each other are thinking about these same kind of concepts. It gives me hope.
And that's what Richard Michel really represents. Is I don't think he'd even heard of the Zeitgeist movement and the concept of a resource-based economy, but the model he was describing was so close to it that it's almost like it's this inevitable conclusion that you come to after a certain time of observing how free market capitalism doesn't work, and this seems to be a reasonable solution that you conclude. We can't just say it's one person. We're not going to have like a great big statue of somebody who had this one idea. We all stand on the shoulders of giants, and these ideas do kind of happen collectively. So that gives me hope that we will see this future we want. Anyway, to finish off, we will have the lovely vegan activists in the afternoon after Richard in the workshop area. So if you did want to talk about veganism with them, ask them lots of questions, you're welcome to do so. And in the presenter area after the afternoon tea, we'll have Eleanor Goldfield again, who will be talking about the fight and the build, and will get us empowered to go on and continue our activism after we finish Z-Day. Afterwards, we'll also have another panel with the presenters from that day, and then I'll wind up in the afternoon. So that will pretty much be it. That is Z-Day, everybody. And Z-Day is actually a long weekend.
Yeah, Z-Days. It just didn't have the same ring to it. But yeah, we really look forward to running this event. It's going to be really, really busy. One thing we didn't really get to talk about because we've run out of time, but I'll just say it briefly. There is an enormous amount of preparation that goes into running an event like this. And as a matter of fact, we're kind of sitting here twiddling our thumbs a little bit because we've all got presentations to finish working on and food to prepare and just a million things to do right now. So, but we've taken this time to do this podcast because we thought that this would be a really valuable use of our time too. So basically, we have to organise food, we have to clean the venue, we have posters to do, we organise presenter flights, we've organised transfers from the airport, presenters are staying with guests around the city as well. So we're not just, leaving them to their own devices to find a hotel room. We're collaborating and working together, we're opening our homes to people. And we're not the only three that are this passionate. There are so many passionate Zeitgeist movement supporters around this city and around the world that are coming in. And we do this not because we want this for personal gain, but we all want this because we are passionately dedicated to wanting a better world. So we really hope that you can support us in this endeavour, and we're doing the best we can to make this world a better place.
Yeah, and for everyone who bought a ticket and is coming to Z-Day, thank you very much.
It means a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.